First of all, again, I'm Pat McGrew, and I work for a company that is now called Keypoint Intelligence. I'm with the InfoTrends division of Keypoint Intelligence, and the Keypoint Intelligence story is that about 18 months ago, two companies that had decidedly different specialties and expertise came together. One was Byers Laboratories, who are best known as the people who test a lot of the hardware that we know and love, and InfoTrends, best known as a research analyst forecasting kind of company. We also do a lot of consulting. The two companies came together and rebranded early this year, as Keypoint Intelligence. And with the two halves of this business, what it does is allow us to serve all of the markets, which were actually pretty much the same markets, but with a much bigger range of products and services and stories that we can share and tell. So we're really excited about the opportunity to work together. So that's the commercial, and I always have to do that whenever I come out to speak. They kind of make it a requirement in order for me to stand here. So commercial over. So let's talk about what's really important. What's really important is that in the areas of the markets that you serve, we're starting to see an explosion. We started to see it in the BLI side of the business, with more and more of the people who were making inquiries about wide format devices, sign printing devices, asking questions about digital front ends and workflows to feed into those devices that would allow them to take on different kinds of work than they had traditionally taken on. They started asking more questions about adding more expansive print MIS systems and more expansive web-to-print and order entry systems. At the same time, on the InfoTrends side of the business, where I work primarily in the production workflow space, we started to do a lot more work in those workflows that people were asking about. And we started to work with some very early adopters and innovators in the market, end users and vendors alike, who were placing units and actually selling net new kinds of products out into the packaging space and the wide format space. So out of that, we started to understand that there is a lot of opportunity. There's opportunity to drive new revenue with products that use data to create a different style of product than you might be used to. And it's the products you know and love that will drive, that you can use to drive this business. Now, let's think about how a lot of your shops may work. We know that there are some pretty amazing $14,000, $15,000, $16,000 products out there that do really nice printing, beautiful color. They're great for vehicle wraps, they're great for signage. There are some really amazing products out there. And we're going to be talking, everything that I'm saying applies to those products as well. But what has changed in the talk track is that now everything that I'm going to talk about also applies to these kind of fancy printers, the ones that are printing the big corrugated sheets, the textile printers, the larger format, like a Nozomi, EFI Nozomi kind of printer. We're going to be talking about those too, because when you take that big fancy printer or even the stand-up reasonably sized roll fit printer, and you add data and insight to the process, what you get is a new approach to the kinds of products and services you might be able to pitch to your clients and your customers. It can give you some range of opportunity that it doesn't fall out naturally. You have to do a little bit of work to build the story, but it is a story that we're finding resonates in a lot of places. So when we talk about data, that might be a scary word. We know when we talk to a lot of commercial print shops and we start talking about data, they almost get out garlic and crosses and try to shoo us out the door, because data is a bad word. It sounds like it might invade somebody's privacy. At the very worst, it sounds like you might have to hire really smart people that you don't have right now, or add burden to the people that you have right now in order to offer services that actually use data. And the truth is that data is all around us. And you don't necessarily have to buy data in order to take advantage of the things that data can let you do in terms of building new products. Data is what differentiates the behavior of your clients and the clients that they serve, the customers that they serve. Data is as simple as, what season is it? Is it spring, winter, summer, or fall? Can I offer my client the opportunity to use the current weather to put up some quick new signs that help them drive their business to take advantage of what the changes in the weather are? It's as simple as, gee, the local sports team just won a national or global championship. Can I help my clients leverage that and get onto that bandwagon by adding really fast production of new signs that take advantage of that data that's already in the marketplace? It can be that high level, but it can also be data that is more precise. It can be helping your client create signage that's location specific. Creating a workflow that allows you to create on their behalf signs that are specific to a product that will be in a specific location in a store, to a specific brand partner that they might have in a specific location. So going into a Costco, and instead of seeing all the white shelf skirts and all of the white all the roll-up signs that are very generic, actually having it keyed to that store location in that community and making the signage that more personal. That's what we mean by using data to create a more valuable product. Consider everything that you sell today and everything that you can sell. These are all pictures that are taken from live situations where products were keyed to specific market locations and specific kinds of events. So probably all of these products in some way, shape, or form are familiar to you, whether it's a roll-up sign from a trade show, or it's a big building-wide billboard, or the hanging drape signs that you see in a lot of retail organizations, or even vehicle wraps. All of these things can be created in a personalized way. It's possible to create a workflow that allows you to create vehicle wraps that are generated specific to the vehicle it's going to go on and the person who's going to be driving it, if your customer wants to do that. Our understanding of the workflows that we've seen in the past is that they've been very static. A PDF file comes in, a design file comes in, and you produce that as many times as the customer asks you to, and they take care of where they're going to locate it, and they make the decisions about where to get that branding located, or where to get that, how to get that vehicle wrapped. In the style of communication that we're starting to see people adopt and make money with, what's happening is that the basic design file is coming in, but the decisions about trading out components of that main design file become data-driven, so that there might be an Excel spreadsheet that comes along with that PDF file base and some additional assets that allow you to create a workflow that generates PDF files on the fly based on how many of each kind of specific design that customer wants to run. So what's that really look like? Well, what it really looks like is taking a look at what data that customer might have available to you. And I'm going to use the example of the basics. I'm going to use the example of main events, seasonal things, what month of the year it is, what location, what kind of internal information your client might have about the locations and the specific brand messaging that they want to use. And then start mapping that kind of idea to different kinds of products. So these products are all, again, live products. But look at the difference between this product and this product. So this one actually has some messaging on the top of it. And the difference for the company that produces this is that they'll produce this for you very happily. You would probably produce it if you're in this piece of the business very happily. But they charge another good value add service fee to put some additional messaging on top of it. And they charge, the product that they sell is location specific displays. So when you go to their website and you want to order a product from them, you can order the plain vanilla version, or for an upcharge, you can send them design files and some location information, and they will create and assemble for you displays that bring into the top piece here the location where that display is going to be, and maybe even some additional information about the environment. So in one case, they were putting location-based maps on the top of it to show where you could buy things that coordinated with the things that were on this display. So the map said, well, you know, here is where you can buy this particular item, but coordinating items can be found in this store, on this aisle, and this aisle, and they showed maps of how you could walk to the other places in the store to find some additional features. So that became a product. Using using trash cans and shelf liners that have specific kinds of messaging that might almost be, you might almost think of them as being live signage, because the way that they've been selling them is to sell these as event-specific kinds of signs that have, in addition to recycle here, they'll have event information and they act like a billboard. That's using data in this context to create a net new product. We know that a lot of, I just stepped on the, oops. We know that a lot of you are probably being asked by your clients about adding things like barcodes or QR codes or maybe even augmented reality to the wide format work that you're doing, to the commercial work that you're doing. So we're finding that a lot of the early adopters and a lot of the visionaries that we've been talking to in the business, and I will be honest with you, many of them are in Europe, where we've seen some of the earliest adoption of some new techniques with regard to wide format printing and packaging printing. They start with barcodes or QR codes and add messaging that invites the customer to interact with the display product with their phone by scanning it. And that's a great way to start. Some of the more advanced applications actually use the image of the product, use the actual sign image as the trigger to take the client to a different kind of experience. So these barcodes are done with this product called Haya from a company in China. Their customers are principally wide format printers and label and packaging printers in the Asian market who are looking to change the experience provided by the packages and the labels that they're printing. So they've not only created a methodology for doing full color QR codes and barcodes so that it can be more attractive, instead of having that big white spot with a black barcode or a black QR code, which you see a lot of, it actually allows it to be color coordinated with the overall brand look and feel on the packages and labels. But they've also created the software that actually manages the data coming in to generate unique barcodes in such a way that they can generate unique QR codes and unique barcodes for every single copy of a sign that you might print or a package that you might print, so that you can then allow your customer to track the impact of the signage in the location. So by inviting customers to interact with the barcodes or the QR codes, they can understand which signs in which locations are actually getting the highest visibility and are actually causing the viewers of those signs to react. That's using data to take the experience of signage to a new level. At its most basic, you design the same, your customers design the same way they've always designed. They add their graphics the same way they've always created their graphics. But now a small database can be created in something as easy as Excel or Google, the Google version of it, which I just forgot the name of. But you can create it using any one of these sort of light spreadsheet products. And using those three components, we're used to the idea of being able to produce variable business cards, variable small marketing content, but you apply those exact same techniques to creating now these large format objects. And it's not hard to do. Most of you already have the tools, or your clients already have the tools that they need. They have Adobe InDesign. Adobe InDesign has a lot of plugins that make it very easy to generate the kinds of PDF files that lead to variable data format output in both large and small format. So you can start there, but then you can also talk to other vendors. People like Chili Publish, people like Haya, people like Silicon Publishers who have some pretty classic variable data design tools, but actually understand the sign and wide format and display markets and have their products set up to allow you to create in the formats and sizes and in the proportions that are more common to your business than a traditional direct mail variable data market or a traditional commercial variable data market. In some cases, these products will also allow you to do something kind of cool and add location-specific information. One thing that we've seen a lot of them do is add maps. So a sign that has a map on it tends to get viewed much more closely than a sign that does not. There's something about that map image that draws us all in. So the nice thing that you can do with data-driven execution of these kinds of products is to use a mapping company to create maps that are very specific to the location the sign will be to lead the customer to where the product can be acquired. So one company we know that does that is a company called Locker, L-O-C-R, out of Germany. They are very good at creating small maps, large maps, big maps, small maps, walking maps, static maps, whatever you might want. Using a company like that instead of just using Apple Maps or Google Maps or Bing Maps brings you a really big advantage in that what you can do with a Locker type map is that you can control the formatting and the color and the size and the proportions of the maps, which you can't do when you just download them out of Google or Bing or Apple, which a lot of companies start with. But when you can create a really personal experience for the viewer of the sign or the packaging object, it really does change the way they view the product. People ask if this is a hard thing to do, and it's really not. It's all about piloting. If you have a customer that you know is sort of your go-to customer for the kind of interesting, cool things that you might want to try, they're a great place to start. Find a customer who is looking for something different to differentiate the way they communicate to the outside world. It might be a retailer, it might be a small cell phone store, it might be an insurance agency. There are all manner of opportunities and options for you. Then talk to them about what would happen if they were able to create some more data-driven, more location-specific marketing messaging with the signs and the point-of-sale pieces that you might be creating for them. From there, just try it and see what happens. Maybe give them a price break if they're willing to be your guinea pig, because it's really not going to cost you any more to do this style of product. It's a question of teaching salespeople how to sell it and teaching your estimators how to estimate it and coming up with a pricing model that will work for you. And because it is a value add, it's something that you can price at a higher margin. In terms of the real work that will change in your shop, it's minimal. Because now what you're trying to do, you're still printing a PDF file. You're not changing any of that. And how much of the variableness that you manage inside your shop is up to you. But even if somebody delivers you the pieces, the InDesign file or the PDF and a database and a zip file with a few things they want to swap out across a series of signs they want to do, the work in your shop to put that together should be pretty minimal. It should be a simple pre-press experience. and yet you can probably sell that product for 4 or 5 times more, if not 10 times more, than what you sell a flat static sign for, a flat static display for. If you're looking at it from a revenue perspective, and you're looking for where the opportunities are for you, look at your current product mix and figure out who that pilot customer would be and the kinds of products that you typically do for them. If you do a lot of roll-up signs, a lot of trade display signs, if you do a lot of retail signs, in each one of those cases, your potentials are going to be a little bit different. Your product opportunities are going to be a little bit different. Find a customer that has a reasonable need to tell a location-based story, and those are going to be your first pilot targets. And then once you've done it 1, 2, or 3 times, then you can start to really build a product story that will mesh with the kinds of customers that you actually serve. It's not a hard thing to do, but let me share a story of how it actually worked. So a customer I worked with over the last year and a half in Italy had been producing what we would call quite boring display boxes for fruit in a grocery store. It was good work, they made nice money off of it, but it was a commodity business. And an awful lot of flat static display and flat static sign is a commodity business. You're competing with the guy 2 miles down the road who has functionally the same kind of equipment that you have. You've been competing head to head in the market and doing nothing but driving the prices down for years. And that was the situation they were in. Every time they turned around to rebid this contract, it came in under what they had done the contract for before. And yet, that's what they did. They produced these kinds of products. So they changed their thought process a little bit. They added the ability to print to basically create variable output of the packaging. Now, when they did that, they had to spend about 6 months rethinking how they were going to sell that product in the marketplace. What they wanted to do was go to the retail grocery chains, and they wanted to offer to them the ability to have boxes of fruit in their store that not only were colorful and more interesting from a positioning and a look and feel on the retail floor standpoint, but what they wanted to do was give them the ability to add marketing and billboard type information to those boxes. So they created a net new product that their salespeople could sell, which was billboard boxes. And those billboard boxes can be designed to stack and tell a story, or they can be designed so that each box is its own story in its own right. They can be designed so that they are done as boxes or as pallet wraps or as display shelf inserts. And in each one of these cases, the printing company works with a contract designer to create a look for in this case, the food vendor, to say, hey, it's a new season, you have new fruit you're bringing in, what do you want it to look like for the next 6 weeks? And they're changing the look and the feel and what they deliver out into the stores every 6 weeks, because fruit and vegetables change every 6 weeks. How they look, where they are in season, what's in season changes. The base product has not changed. The base product that they're producing has not changed. It's still boxes and skirt wraps and the supporting signage that hangs over top. But now, with a new product that they've coined and they've priced, their salespeople are selling it, these new style of display pieces for 5 to 6, 7 times what they were selling them before, and the amount of incremental work inside the shop was maybe 2 or 3 hours for them to manage the way the orders come in. Because now, instead of selling somebody 2 or 3 months worth of brown or white packaging, they're selling them 6 weeks worth of packaging, and then they're getting ready to sell them the next 6 weeks and the next 6 weeks and the next 6 weeks. And what they're watching is the business grow. They're watching the business grow because once they did it for one fruit vendor who wanted to make sure their stuff was positioned in the store well and viewed well, the other vendors who were competing for shelf space and floor space started coming to them to ask for the same kind of program. So instead of being forced down the road to doing cheaper and cheaper packaging, they're selling more and more expensive packaging in 6 week increments. That's just one story. And we've seen that happen over and over. Now that story comes from northern Italy. And the guys in Europe always say to me, what's really cool in the US that's going on? And I keep pointing to stories like that from tiny little communities in Italy. The print vendor is in the Alps in northern Italy in a place that is really hard to get to, right? I still don't know how the trucks get down the road to the place that they have to pick up all these boxes. But they do, and they serve a very small market. But now they're making money and they're continuing to grow their operation because they've changed the way they're positioning that product. So if you're producing a lot of static products, the thing to think about is what could you turn into a variable product? And how could you use the things, the relationship with your customer and the things that they need to communicate to their clients to turn it into something that is a high margin conversation and a higher revenue opportunity for you instead of being a commoditized product. So whenever I stand up in front of a group of people, I ask the same question. I just sort of talked nonstop for, about 20 minutes. Did you hear something valuable in what you heard? Any ideas? Ways that you might be able to take that knowledge back and use it? Anybody going to run back to the shop and have a conversation with somebody about trying something new? Okay, I'm getting a little bit of this. So for those of you listening to the recording, we're getting a few of the heads nodding in the right direction. So the question that I want to ask then is, as somebody who lives, eats, and sleeps and breathes in this industry, is this the kind of thing that you could see in 2 to 3 years being a natural part of the story that you tell to your clients? Do you think it would resonate with them? Anybody? Maybe a little bit? Anybody think there is no chance whatsoever? Okay, so some of you are thinking it, but you're not admitting it. I can tell. I'm sorry, Chad, I'm running out of your view there. So I want you to think about data differently. I want you to think about the products and services that you sell differently. And if you will do that, when we get together next time, maybe this time next year, hopefully some of the stories that we have to tell will be your stories, because we are seeing this explode in Europe as a way to change and build and grow printing operations. We'd like to see that same explosion here. Good? Skip?
Let me ask a question. This is obviously a big shift from, particularly in the sales organization. What would be your recommendation for people here to go back to their sales organizations, share some of these ideas, and kind of give them some direction on how do you start this conversation with your customer?
So how would I want the sales guys to start the conversation with the customer? Okay, I got you. That's a really good question because it's a really big problem. Does anybody have salespeople who only want to sell what you've been doing for the last 20 years and they don't want to sell anything new? Anyone have that problem? Maybe a little bit? Or who of you has salespeople who are just excited every time a new piece of equipment comes in the door and desperately want to sell what that does? You are in an excellent position. A rare position, because most of the time salespeople, they're very comfortable with the quotes and the estimates that they've been doing, and they're comfortable with the things that you have to produce. So when you start bringing in a radically new idea of taking a product that they kind of know what it looks like and it feels very familiar, but now you're asking them to charge 4 or 5 times more for it, that can be a hard sell. And what it comes down to is showing the value. And sometimes the way to do that is by piloting with a friendly customer and having your sales team work along with that customer and sort of watching how they use it to identify the value. Although what I have seen work very well is to have your salespeople approach people who have never been clients before with this wild and crazy new idea, who aren't exposed to previous pricing from you, and practice on a net new customer to try and sell them something new. Can it happen? Yes, it can. I was sitting with a vendor today who was telling me a story about how they were selling a new product. One of their customers bought one of their new products from them. It provides a lot of enhancement capabilities. It provides the opportunity to do some really unique look and feel that they hadn't been able to offer before. And the immediate reaction was, well, I have to price it very low because my customers won't pay extra for those kinds of things. And after some arm twisting and pushing, the salesperson was prevailed upon to offer it at a price that was 4 times what they normally sold that print product for, because it had these enhanced capabilities, these enhanced look and feel to it, and the customer bought it. And the customer bought it because they couldn't get it any other way. Once they were sold on the value of having a product that had a different look and feel and differentiated their brand, it wasn't a price conversation anymore. It wasn't a, can you do it for 25 cents a piece conversation anymore. Now it was a conversation about how fast can you deliver it, and how many different ways can I enhance it? What are all the things that I can do with it? So you have it's a challenging thing to own and operate a salesperson anyway, because salespeople very often if they're really good, they can operate in their own world, and sometimes it's very hard to keep them under control. But offering them new things to sell with a compensation plan that matches what you're asking them to go sell, compensate them a little bit more highly for selling something that's new and wild and crazy different, that can often work to get them out there selling the kinds of capabilities that you bring in when you bring in these new kinds of devices and these new solutions. Right? Because this is something that you can do, that the data-driven approach is something that you can do that is, when you start to look at these kinds of products, this is something that you can do with very little change to what you're already printing and producing. It's just a pricing difference at that point. Sell it this way plain, but if you want the power of something that's more personalized, customized, we can do this for you, but here's the price difference. Some of your clients will be savvy enough to realize it's not really any harder for you to do one than the other. But in the end, it's down to your ability to market the value, your ability to produce that product for them. Yeah? So it's a consultative sales model that you're using. And so I like that. Compensating on margin is you'd have loved to have done that.
But beyond, my question to you is, obviously that's a successful model. Beyond compensating them by margin, you've obviously trained your salespeople to be more application oriented than just click or pieces of paper.
The sales reps in our organization that sell impressions and work with procurement are becoming more and more obsolete. It is the marketing people who sell value.
So you're in the sweet spot. You're doing exactly everything right. No, but you're in the sweet spot because you're kind of where a lot of the organizations I work with in Europe are, where you've already recognized the value proposition of selling the ROI and selling the lifestyle story as opposed to selling the impressions and, based on how many I can produce for you in an hour and, at how many mils per page, right? Because that's never the conversation you want, but very often the conversation you have. But how often do your salespeople turn over?
Less than they used to. Quite honestly, we're weeding out commodity people.
Yep.
And we're getting more value-based people. My personal mantra is, as a salesperson, and I am, if I'm ever in a 3-day process, I have something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I'm some value. If there's not two other companies who are going to be having this conversation. So finding those people is hard. Well, work.
Right.
It's not about $100,000 you make top line. It's about $75,000 per week.
Right.
$1,000.
So does anybody else sell? Do you basically you think of yourself as selling on a commodity basis, where you're selling, like you're going for the lowest bid, or you're responding to a lot of RFPs? So it's not as common in this group. In some groups, it is very common that there's a lot of RFP bidding going on, and this is a hard story for people to swallow when their life is based on RFPs. And one of the things that we advise for organizations that have been building their business based on responding to RFPs is to start to have conversations with the people letting the RFPs to let them know your real capabilities, because very often they're writing an RFP based on the last one they wrote and the last one they wrote and the last one they wrote, or a seminar that they went to that told them how to write an RFP to get the best price, but they haven't actually considered what the value-added opportunities you could bring to the table are. So as a producer of a product for them, if you take the responsibility to educate them about what's possible with all of the capabilities that your shop has, it can change the nature of the RFP conversation entirely. Someone told me a story today about how there was an RFP that came in, the salesperson wanted to go lowest common denominator, but instead they went out and met with the client and who had let the RFP and said, well, would you be interested in something that looks like this? Would you like something that looks like this? Your RFP didn't address this thing over here and we can do this. Would you be interested? Client rewrote the RFP. And when they rewrote the RFP, because they had influenced it, they were in the best position to meet the requirements of the RFP, and everybody else who just submitted based on the original RFP was out of the running. So there's a lot of art and science to it, right? There's a lot of science to figuring out what your costs are and how you're going to make money on it, but there's a lot of art to the sales part of it and to the marketing part of it. I want to thank you very much for taking time. I want to give you a little bit of time back in your hour, because I know it's a big show up there to walk. We hope that this was valuable. There is this survey, and we would ask if you would take a few minutes to either click on your phone or jump on board and fill that survey out. It helps ISA understand how things work. I'm actually here courtesy of Skip Henk, who's sitting here in the front audience, in the front row here. He's with an organization called Xplor International, which is an education organization in the industry, and they were the ones who asked me to come and speak on their behalf. So we are very happy to have been able to come and speak to you on this topic. Hopefully we'll be back and speaking to you on other topics in future ISAs. And I'm here. If you see me, please come up and ask any questions you have or ping Skip, and we're always happy to answer questions. Thanks very much for coming.